Logic is arguably one of the most important sciences a student, academic, or researcher should busy themselves with before getting into the chosen field that they would like to study. That is because it relates to the way in which you formulate thoughts and ideas and define things and make evidences. Without properly studying this subject, it is very possible to fall into fallacies of reasoning and therefore draw improper conclusions. So, what is logic? Well, logic, according to some of the logicians in the Arabic tradition, is عبارة عن مسائل يبحث فيها عن أحوال التعريف والدليل. It is an expression, al-mantiq. Logic is an expression of matters in which the states of definition and evidences are studied. Now, the benefit of this subject, of course, is to protect the mind. It says صون الذهن عن الخطأ في أثناء صياغة التعريف وفي أثناء صياغة الدليل. It protects the mind from making mistakes when forming definitions and evidences. So how do we study this? Now, when I was at university, we studied a very popular text called the Isagoge, and that was written by a prominent scholar known as Athiruddin al-Abhari. May God be pleased with him. This text I studied at university, but also read some books on it and have been benefiting from the online classes of Hossam Lutfi, which I'll leave a link to down below in the description. These sources of learning altogether will help us to begin this journey learning. The Isagoge will be the text around which we will pivot, and all of the other learnings will come in at various intervals to append to the text and give a commentary on it. Briefly, I just want to introduce a few concepts, key concepts in the science, because they really start to outline a lot that is in the book and they're essential for learning it. So one of them is known as tasawwur, and tasawwur is essentially translated as concept. Now, sawwara is related to images, of course, to the formulation of some sort of image or concept in the mind. But in this context, what it means, if we just look at the definition, idrak al-mufrad, it is to have a recognition and apprehension of the meaning of a singular term. So for example, if I say al-insan, do you have an understanding of what that word means? Or a sayara, do you have an understanding of what that word means? If you know Arabic, you will. If you don't, you won't. In English, if I say a person, do you have an understanding of what that means? Or a car, do you have an understanding of what that means? More likely, you do. But it is to know the meaning, and there may be different levels of that, but do you know the meaning? Now, for that, we need to come up with a definition, or we need to know the definition as it is posited. So for example, Hossam Lutfi gives a great way of understanding these concepts, and he says al-insan imma yuwajihu mufradan la ya'lamu ma'nahu fayahtaju ila at-ta'rif. So a person, either he doesn't know the meaning of a singular term, and so he needs a definition. أو يواجه قضية لا يعرف صحتها فيحتاج إلى الدليل. Or he encounters a proposition that he doesn't know the correctness of, and so therefore he needs an evidence. So in the first case, let's say you didn't know the definition of a person, I would then need to give you the definition and say a person is a hayawan natiq, or a human being rather. Let's use human being, hayawan natiq. It is an animal that is capable of intellectualization, for example. Hayawan natiq. Now, if I were to say the stars are bright, that's a proposition. I'm proposing that the stars are bright. In order to ascertain, to assent to the truthfulness or the falsity of that statement, as-sidqu or al-kadhib, you would need an evidence, i.e. you would need to go out and ascertain to affirm that the stars are bright. You would need to witness it potentially, or you would need some other form of evidence, like khabr. Somebody says to you, you know what, that is right, I've heard that, and etc., etc. some form of evidence, which we'll get into later on. So those are two important concepts. Now, in regards to the definition, I will just mention one thing briefly, and it is about this idea of inclusion, jami', and exclusion, mani'. So when we talk about a person, when we say haywan, animal, all animals are included in that definition. So in order to define a human being, we need to have something that excludes human beings from the rest of the animals. What do we need? The differential. We need that quality that other animals don't have. So the idea that we are capable of intellectualization, of thinking, of thought, of abstract thought, of creating syllogisms and arguments and dialectics and all of these things, that's what differentiates us from animals. I'm just introducing it in this way so that it's easy for grasping and learning. So with definitions, it is jami' aman, it is inclusive of the things that it is and exclusive of that which is not it. So we have learned a number of things today about tasawwur, formation of ideas, of tasdiq, the assent to the truthfulness or the falsity of a statement, and a bit, very small bit, about definitions and what they include and what they should not include. This is super brief. It's not meant to be comprehensive. It's just a short introduction and taster of what's to come. Thank you so much for listening. See you next time. Assalamu alaikum.